Hi, everyone. Tonight's Q&A is from an email that I got from a teacher who is asking me, let me read it for you, if she should switch from one language to another when teaching. Excuse the room tonight. I'm not well. I'm at home. I can't move. I threw my back out and I'm literally stuck at home. Okay, so I just want to get into this question. I'm on my little tiny PC, so it's kind of hard to see where did it go. Disappeared on me. Anyways, the question was: she has a student who is a native Spanish speaker, and she's teaching the child English. Now, the only problem I have with this question is that I don't know if this is a regular school teacher in an English speaking country that has a Spanish student in the class, or if this is just, pardon the word just, but just a language teacher that is teaching English to a group of children, obviously non native speakers. And she happens to have a Spanish speaker in the class, and she's working in a country that is not a Spanish speaking country. So I'm going to tackle this question on both fronts. Let's just take a look at the scenario if the person is a regular school teacher. There's always been this big question, should we switch from one language to another? Is it okay? Will the kids get confused? And I think we really have to think about the situation first. If the person is a regular school teacher, we have to remember that the teacher has about 8 hours a day with this person. Okay. So there's ample time to use English, obviously. But because the child is there for 8 hours a day, we have to also remember that that child, if it's a foreign child, that child has probably just moved to a new country. And there's a whole lot of emotional stuff going on, right? Because if you move to a new country, you've left family behind, you've left maybe your friends, your home, your customs, the things, your traditions, the things that you know. And it's a brand new experience, which can be really scary for a child. Another thing I don't know about this teacher is how old the child is. So if we're looking at children that are about age 10, of course they understand that these sounds over here are one language and these other sounds over here are another language. But when you're working with children that are in the preschool level, as I do, or kindergarten, they do recognize the different sounds. They do get it that these sounds go together and these other sounds, the other language, go together, but they don't really understand that they are two different languages. So that's another problem I have with the question. I don't know how old the child in question is. And if we're thinking about a school teacher and thinking about the child having all of this like emotional baggage really going on because the child has just moved to a new country, I would say that in that case, it's okay to switch from one language to another. Maybe not in the same sentence, but you can switch during the day because it's really important that the child establishes a bond of trust with you, with the teacher. And that can only be done with words, with conversation. I live in Italy. I live in a country. I feel very lucky to say that I live in a country where we can hug children, kiss children, touch children, and it's part of being a teacher. I know that's not possible in other countries. I can't wrap my head around it. To me, it's something really strange, but I know that's how it is in many other countries. So oftentimes teachers, the only way they can get close to their children is through thoughtful, meaningful conversations. So in that case, if you are a school teacher, full-time teacher, and your child is in your class, go ahead and switch languages. Have conversations in Spanish. The teacher also wrote me that she is a fluent Spanish speaker. And then do your thing in English as well. It's not going to be the end of the world. Also, because if the kid is there for 8 hours a day, he or she will be playing with other children and they will be speaking to that child in English. And so the child will have ample opportunity to map out the language and learn the language. And really, really amaze you when you see how much that child will learn at the end of the school year. If we're looking at a different scenario, however, if we have a child who is in an English course, okay, so in an English course, a Spanish speaking child in an English course in a country where um, they don't speak Spanish, I guess, maybe in Egypt or something. In this case, I would say to the teacher to abstain from speaking both languages because, first of all, you only have an hour per week with the child, or maybe 2 hours per week. So we don't have all of that time for the child to be able to map out both languages. Now, I just want to give you a quick example sorry, my back really hurts. A quick example in Spanish and English. We know that in English, adjectives come before the noun. So we say blue book, okay? But in Spanish, adjectives come after the nouns. So it's not blue book, it's book blue. It's libro azul. And if the teacher passes from one language to another, what's going to happen is the child is not going to understand if it's correct to put this color before the noun and say blue book, or is it correct to say book blue? Because again, depending on the child's age, if it's a very young child, they will hear that certain sounds go together over here and certain sounds go together over here, but it's not really clear that these two languages have different syntax, different semantics. It's a completely different code of communication. An older child, of course, does understand, oh, this is a language, and they know what language is because they've developed an inner conscience of what language is, right? But a younger child, all they hear when they hear a different language is just a bunch of sounds that sounds different from what they know. So if you are just an English teacher, a language teacher, like in an institute or something, abstain from switching languages because the child will not have time to map out the language. So all I can say to you is go slowly. Don't be afraid of going slowly. That's one of the problems I get with lots of teachers. They think because they know the language and they know what they're saying, and they think they're sounding so boring and so repetitive when they just go over and over and over and over saying the same things. That's actually a very good idea. Don't worry about repeating yourself, going very, very slowly, because these words are not new to us because we speak the language. But to a child who does not know the language, even the most simple quote unquote word like cat or dog, it's not that simple. It's a new word that you have to learn. So do go slow, repeat yourself, use a lot of facial mimicry, a lot of body language, and try to find a way to communicate with that child so that they never feel uncomfortable. Okay. Find a method that helps you communicate in a way that they understand. You guys know that I have a method, English is Fun. If you want to check it out, it's in the link below. I'm not saying you have to use mine, but the important thing about having a method, and I think this is something we can't ever forget, is that a method is not just, oh, this is a good activity, and oh, this is another good activity. This one's good too. A method is a series of activities and learning experiences that, when put together, will promote learning. A method will also teach you how to communicate with your students in a way that they understand you. Okay, so this is just something to consider. Whether you're an English teacher in a school or whether you're a school teacher and teach everything else, the one big thing I ask is never, ever pretend that you don't understand your child. That's something that I hear a lot, especially people who work in language institutes. Maybe the director of the schools will say, oh, just pretend you don't understand. Well, I think that's terrible. Don't pretend you don't understand. There's nothing more frustrating than to not be listened to not be understood. And I don't see how um, talking to a wall, because that's what you become in the eyes of the child, could ever promote the desire to communicate. So whatever you do, whether you decide to switch languages or keep it all in English, always, always show them that you understand.